You can start now.
Okay. Terima kasih. Okay. Terima kasih Bu Landung Esariti. We start now. Okay. Kedengaran suara saya?
Terdengar ya?
Bu Diah,
Okay.
Intan will open. Yeah, Intan will
Okay.
open the session first. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Silakan Intan.
Good afternoon, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Thank you for all participants for joining our international lecture series today with series 5 Sustainable Urban Landscape. Today we will have Prof. Johannes Widodo from NUS Singapore and Ibu Novia Sari from Department of Urban and Regional Planning as the speakers and Ibu Diah Intan as the moderator today. And thank you for all participants who are joining our session today. And without further ado, I will pass this session to our beloved moderator, Ibu Diah Intan. Time and sequence is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Intan. Okay. Good day and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Urban and Regional Scientific Forum in International Lectures, Series 5 in 2023 for Sustainable Urban Landscape. On behalf of Urban and Regional Department Diponegoro University, I am Diah Intan. In this session, will be moderator during this session. First of all, thank you for all participants to join us today. This international lecture series was hosted by Urban and Regional Department Diponegoro University collaboration with National University of Singapore. This session also will be live streamed in PWK YouTube channel. Today, we will have two distinguished speakers, Prof. Dr. Johannes Widodo and Mrs. Novia Ristianti, to share some case about sustainable landscape. So before we start, I would like to invite our head of Urban and Regional Planning Department, Prof. Dr. Wiwandari Handayani, give opening remarks. Please welcome Prof. Wiwandari.
Okay, thank you, Bu Diah, and apologize. I'm still on my way in Jakarta. So yeah, I hope the internet connection would be okay for 1 minute from now. Just want to say hello to everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, and it's a really honor for me here as the head of the department to welcome our distinguished speaker from the National University of Singapore, Prof. Johannes Widodo. As we know, you have a very broad experience on the topic, and I hope this can enrich the understanding and also comprehension of our students, Prof. Johannes, because we know the topic become more and more important, especially for Indonesian context. I also would like to thanking all of the lectures from the urban design laboratory of the department. We have Bu Novia, who become the second speaker to also become the discussion and to enrich on the topic, and also to Bu Diah as the moderator. And I hope all the participants who already joined and maybe later on will be joined via the YouTube streaming can take some benefit from our topic today. So yeah, happy presentation and discussion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Wiwandari, for your opening remarks. Now we will start our first speaker, Prof. Dr. Johannes Widodo. Let me introduce Prof. Dr. Johannes Widodo. Intan, maybe you can share screen about Prof. Dr. Johannes Widodo's CV. Okay. Prof. Johannes Widodo is from Department of Architecture, National University of Singapore. He is the director of NUS Tun Tan Cheng Lok Center for Asian Architectural and Urban Heritage in Malacca, Malaysia, and executive editor of GSEAA of the Department of Architecture, National University of Singapore. His research is interest and teaching are focused on three related areas: history and theory of architecture. Secondly, architecture morphology and typology. And the last, architectural conservation and heritage management. Okay, maybe we can see about the publication. And there is some publication from Prof. Dr. Johannes Widodo. And now we would like to thank you, Intan. And now I would like to welcome Prof. Dr. Johannes Widodo to give a lecture. Please.
Thank you, Diah. Must we use English or can I use Bahasa Indonesia?
Must use English. Sorry, Prof. Must use English.
Okay. Although it's a bit ridiculous because we are all and Indonesian population is number 4 in the world, but it's okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
To make this really international.
Yes.
All right, so I will start with sharing my screen.
Thank you.
You can stop me anytime if
Yes.
you want to say like warning about the time and so on. Okay, so I will just start very quickly because I have 40 slides, so one slide is no more than 1 minute. I was asked to give this topic of sustainable urban landscape. So, but first I will start with this fact. This is a predictions by 2050. By 2050, now it's 2023, so it's not so long from now, when one more generations. The world population will reach 10 billion. And India will overtake China. Actually, it's not will, but it's already overtake China in terms of populations as the most populous country in the world. Then WWF predicted that the Earth will not have sufficient resources to sustain human life by 2050. It means there is a deficit. So what we have, water, mineral, food, everything is deficit. Even now, the food price is become so expensive because of the war, because of the climate change. The inflation is extremely high. I went to Semarang last week, and eating in Semarang cafe doesn't mean it's cheaper than Singapore. Yes? In Singapore, even you can find a cheaper chicken rice rather than eating a cafe in Semarang. And UN predictions say that 2 of 9 people in the world will be 60 years old or older, and world life expectancy exceeds 76 years. I mean, many countries, the conditions, health, everything is getting better. People living longer. It means there are more mouths to be fed. You need a lot of resources for taking care of the elders. Then by 2050, Asia cities predicted to be home of more than 60% of the world urban belts. So Asia especially will see this is coming, that more people live in the city rather than in the urban center. And then, of course, we know that about this climate crisis. Yeah, so it's getting hotter and hotter. There's many more disasters, flood everywhere, fire everywhere, not just in Indonesia, but all over the world. And it's not just happening on the tropical belt, but also far north, even to Norway, Japan, South Australia. They're experiencing the problem of this. And the reason of this climate change, climate crisis, is directly related to our behavior, human behavior and ethics, and morality. Because we are doing something that is unhealthy, doing something that is endangering the earth. And cultural heritage that we receive now, so whatever we receive from our ancestors, and what we experience today, and we should pass on to the next generations, actually it's not in a very good shape, including our cities. Our old town, our old villages, even the rice field, everything is horrible, in horrible conditions because of the over exploitations, because of consumerism. And this consumerism, there are two ways. It's like a double-edged sword. It will harm conservation efforts, or it will promote sustainable practices. So our behavior and moral values can influence whether we can conserve what we have now, cultural or natural, including cities, or not. So if we cannot do that, then we are in the big trouble. So if you look into the map on the left, you can see that Indonesia actually free from typhoon, free from hurricanes. Hurricanes normally happen on the north side of the equator, but we are lived in earthquake-prone areas. So our cities is always under threat from earthquake. Well, this is just very general predictions, but in reality, flood is happening in many cities, especially coastal cities, because of the rising seawater. And more natural disasters like wind, like storm, start to happen even below the equator. And of course, the problem that we know is about waste, about pollutions. So if we are asking to talk, we are talking about sustainability. So what is the essence of sustainability? How to be sustainable? Of course, we cannot just ask this sustainability from God, right? We have to start from ourselves. So I think the basic of the problem now is many of us actually forgot about these three-party relationships. As a human being, we are dependent to God. We also dependent to nature and culture. So nature and culture actually is not two, but actually is one. Therefore, we cannot separate this. And human is the custodian of this. Is the one who are given the right by God and also by our ancestor to maintain the balance, to maintain the resources, especially us who live in the present generations. Then how our behavior will dictate how this will be able to be passed on to the next one. And second, if you look into the relationship of ourselves, the nature to our human being, there are two types of attitude. Yeah, you can reflect as a human, whether you are egocentric, with this everything focused to yourself, everything is me. Yeah. For example, well, if I want I always listen to my student presentation in the studio. Whenever they present the project, they always use the word I want this, I want that. This is what I want. That is a mindset that focuses to ourselves, egocentric. I want to create buildings that bear our signature. So people know this is my building. This is my design. This is my legacy. As a governor, as a president, as a mayor, I want to leave a footprint in the history. So that is egocentrism. The opposite of egocentrism is altruism. Altruism means we feel that we are just doing our job. We are just facilitating things. Whatever we design actually is to fulfill everyone's needs. That people need food, that people need shelter, that people need good life, people need help. So as a president, as a governor, as an urban planner, as an architect, as a parent, as a director of a company, whoever, we just want to give whatever we can to provide that for everyone. Okay, so I think this needs to be balanced, the relationships. So without this kind of mindset, balancing the altruistic thinking and the egocentric behavior, then we will not be able to manage well whatever that we are given to us. I always use these examples of how we deal with nature and we deal with with culture and also with our cities and product. So I use the analogy of MLM, multi-level marketing. So on the multi-level marketing, the people on the top will suck the resources from the bottom to enrich themselves on the top, but then they will left everyone on the bottom as poor as possible because they have nothing. Everything has been sucked through the middle, which is the downliner. Yeah, if you start the MLM business, the one who started is the richest. Why? Because they create 5 downliners. The 5 downliners will create another 25 downliners. That 25 downliners will create another downliner. So everybody actually is selling my product. And I enjoy all the money. I give incentive to my downliner, but the maximum benefit, the wealth itself, is enjoyed by the self on the top. And it is called exploitation. Exploiting people and nature as a resources and channel it up, accumulations of wealth. And the result is the depletions of resources. Makes the life of everyone suffer. So I mean, it actually is the reversal of paradigms. If you are an architect, if you are a student, if you are a policymaker or even businessman, in order to be able to reverse this, to fulfill the 17 SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals, then there is no other way than we have to flip our paradigms. So we have to be more generous. We have to be philanthropists. You have to be people who give a lot of charity in order to disperse, to return the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of economic prosperity back into the bottom, back to people and nature, giving back as a so-called the common goods. It's like a metaphor of the hourglass, right? So it's like sand glass. You have to reverse that completely. And only by doing this, then it is possible to stop the so-called the bad impact of global warming. So we can do the climate mitigations, property elevations, poverty eradications, and so on to fulfill the 17 SDGs. So this 17 SDGs is promoted by, proposed by United Nations through the conference in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 as an indicator of how bad is our situations now. That's why every nation have to set a goal in 2030, which is 7 years from now, to fulfill this, to eradicate poverty, to eradicate zero hunger, having a good health, and so on. So if you look into our conference now, our webinar, the backdrop is only number 11 and 15. But actually, it's not just that 2. We have 17 problems they have to tackle. And the problem is most of the country in the world, the member of United Nations, who already promised to fulfill these 17 SDG achievements, until now probably is only achieving between 20 to 30%, maximum 40%. So we are running out of time, including Indonesia. So if you want to check how much Indonesia is progressing in terms of achievement of this, you just Google and go to UNDP report and see for each component, which one Indonesia fared the best and which one actually is still in very difficult situations. For 11 and 15, we are way behind schedules. So this pledge, SDG goal 11, countries have pledged to make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So this promise within the goal, like 11.4, strengthen effort to protect and safeguard the world cultural and natural heritage. I don't think we reach even 30% of the target. So there's a lot of things to do. And as a students, dealing directly with this achievement, goal number 11, especially 11.4, actually this is a challenge to us. So how to written to that, how to flip the hourglass, how to flip the paradigms. So I think the reason is very simple. The way is very simple. Just written architecture, just written culture back into a human being, back into the center of the creations. So we call it the human-centered design. I always use these examples many times to show how actually human can resist not to build on that island, but build on the water. This fishermen in the off coast of Papua, Indonesia, understand the importance of conservation of the natural resources of that island. Because that island provide them with building materials, coconut trees, with protein, food, animals, flora, fauna, and also with water, fresh water, not the seawater. So if they cut all the trees, they build on the land, then they will not last for the next generations. And they understand by building the settlements on the water, they create this ecosystem, circularity, that it will help to generate food for the fish. They recycle all the waste from the daily life, return it back into the sea, and the fish will consume it, and they get more fish to come. So they can get more benefit from the economic benefit of that by conservation. And the only building that may exist on the island, in this case, because they are Christian community, is a church. So the church is situated on the island as the only building that guard the connections between the built environment and the nature, between God and human being. So this is how that triangle, human or culture, nature, and God or the deities is being connected into one system. And this understanding of creating the balance between consumption and productions, between conservation and development, is something that we can learn from our ancestors. So I think for me, if you're talking about now, the second term, urban landscape cannot be separated from natural landscape. Yeah, because culture and nature is one. You cannot separate that one. So that's why we always call this as a simple term. It's very similar of cultural landscape. It is a symbiosis of human activities and the environment. And Indonesia, the PPPI, already declared, we already have a declarations to protect conservations of cultural landscape. And there is one Indonesian term, which is saujana, that is being used and popularized. And this has been registered even with e-commerce. So the word saujana already become the global terminology to understand the connections between human nature and culture, and including the urban landscape. So one good example is Sawah Lunto. You know, Sawah Lunto has been listed in UNESCO World Heritage List as a World Heritage Site. But the problem is that listing is only focused on the colonial heritage, only focused on the coal mining, only focused on the colonial buildings. But when I went to Sawah Lunto, what I realized, it is not about colonial architecture. So the Saujana of Sawah Lunto, the urban culture, the urban heritage, and also the cultural landscape or urban landscape of Sawah Lunto is Sawah and Lunto. Sawah is referring to rice field, Lunto is referring to the river, Batang Lunto. And these two together is become the context of where the city is situated. And the colonial layers only come later in the 19th century as part of this existing cultural landscape, existing urban landscape. So for me, actually, the OUV, the outstanding universal value of Sawah Lunto, is nothing to do with the colonial buildings. Whether because it's listed in the UNESCO, that's a different matter, because listing can also be wrong. It doesn't have to be right, right? But for me, whatever is Sawah Lunto for me is the sound of Azan that is being broadcasted from that minaret at the center of the valley. So when you come to Sawah Lunto, you will pass through the river, you will pass through the rice field, and then you enter the city. And that city is situated at the bottom of a bowl, surrounded by the mountain. And then 5 times a day, even more sometimes, you can hear the call of prayer from the bottom of the valley through that very tall minaret. And the entire sound and the entire ambience of that place is become part of your realization as human being. So this is something that I call a holistic experience, a symbiosis of human activities and environment in a very comprehensive way. Another aspect that is also very important in terms of the relationship is how our attitude towards disaster, because disaster has happened, as I show in the very first, at the beginning of this lecture. You see earthquake, for example, or flood, or hurricanes, or typhoon, or even fire. Disaster is part and parcel of our life. So, but how people react towards this kind of disaster? There are 2 types of attitude. One is we are trying to resist nature by using knowledge, technology, and money. One good example is on the pictures on the left. So that is in US, and there's flood because of happening every year, because of the hurricane, because of the seasons. So they develop a mechanism like a dam made of a balloon. So if the flood coming, then suddenly the balloon will appear surrounding your side, and your side is protected from the rising water. So you are safe, you are dry, but you become isolated, you become a prisoner. But on the other way, if you look into our friends in Vietnam or also in Thailand, they accept this as fact of life. So whenever there is a flood coming to the city of Hoi An, for example, in central Vietnam, this is another UNESCO World Heritage City, they just simply take their boat. They open the market on the flood, and they do shopping by the boat. And the typology of the house itself, I will show you later, is also adapting into this. When Bangkok was flooded for many, many weeks in 2011, people just go out and play. So they enjoy this. Doesn't mean that we enjoy disaster. Disaster is a disaster. But our attitude toward disaster is not make us dependent to something that is not sustainable. But we depend ourselves to something that is more sustainable, which is so-called our cultural resilience. We make fun. We're having fun. We don't take that seriously. Why? Because we have a very optimistic views towards the world. And also how the house in the flooded area, like in Hoi An, changed the typology, adapted the typology into this flood, is by creating a door, back door and front door. The river coming from the back. So when the flood coming, they just open the door, both sides, and let the water passing through the house. So the house will be intact. Why? Because it is not trying to resist the flood. Then put everything valuable, including altars, including everything that is perishable, electronics, your books, your stock or materials, everything at the second floor. And so the ground floor, if it's flooded, then be it. And then after the flood, it's very easy to clean the ground floor. And at the same time, also you preserve the integrity of the structure of the house. This is the marketplace during the flood, 3 months during the rainy seasons. And during that 3 months rainy season, the people in southern Vietnam and also central Vietnam developed an art, which is the water puppet show. This is how the farmers entertaining the children during that 3 months very boring days. They cannot go anywhere. The school are closed, so they're staying at home. So they do the education process through a water puppet show by immersing themselves into the water. And then they, for those who are visiting Hanoi, will know that this theater has been elevated at the same level as the Paris Opera in Hanoi by Ho Chi Minh, the founding father who defeated the colonial power in Vietnam, and become a national, very important national treasure or national heritage. So you can see that this is an attitude that we accept the strength of nature. We accept our faith faithfully. Then we are trying to make the best of it. And how we thought to deal with that without necessarily trying to resist that. It's like a bamboo that can bend easily on the strong wind. So the wind will not be able to break the bamboo. See, this is another evidence what happened in Banda Aceh. Everything is gone after the tsunami. But then the mosque stand at the middle of the ruins. And the Aceh people see this with this faith that the God is really protecting their life. Of course, many people died, thousands of people missing. But by looking into the mosque, the recovery process happened very fast. So you can see the difference between before and after. A few years later, you can see everything back to normal. So I think this is the way that how our sustainable urban landscape is happening because of this spiritual power, because of our faith, because of, if we use the word, ikhlas. If you are not ikhlas, you try to fight, then you'll be defeated. But if you have these positions, mental position, mindset positions, yes, it's destroyed, but we can raise again. Not just in Aceh, but also in Fukushima, Japan, for example. The Matsuri, or the festival, has been reenacted even 1 year after the tsunami. So on the left, you see, is the festival is being organized in the foundations of the old shrine, which is swept by the tsunami some years ago. So to keep this optimism, to keep the community spirit together is the key to sustainability. We don't need to learn this from outside. Yeah? Look into what happened to, say, people in Nias. So these lessons from our traditional and vernacular architecture show how is the urban resilience is being translated into form. The cross sections, and the middle, you have the stone, the ancestral stone, the village stone, number 1. And then number 2, the navel of the village, the central stone. And then number 3 is the chief house. Number 4, the council house. Number 5 is the megalith. When the people, the youth used to jump to signify the adulthood, for example. It's become the symbolic aspect at the middle of the village, the navel of the village. And then from there, you have a development, north and south, east and west, to connect with the forest, to connect with the river, and so on. So we have this so-called the mandala, the mental concepts of the urban structure, of the zoning, of the orientations. That has been there because our ancestors learned from their experience. And even the modern utopian cities, it's not just exclusive in Indonesia. The idea of a strong community as the foundations of modernizations has been discussed by, for example, like Claude Nicolas Ledoux, 18th century, who designed a new urban form with a communal hall at the center, which is democracy, the power of democracy, the power of togetherness, replacing the feudalism replacing the church, replacing the religious buildings by assembly building to make the decision-making together. Then the center part is the administrations, the management. Then it's surrounded with productions, and the productions mixed together with the housing. And the housing is not based on the race differences, not based on the income differences or feudal status, but based on the functionality. And this has become the foundation of modern city planning. Then Owen is also developed in 1925. The idea to create ideal community based on cooperative system in US. Again, the center is not a church, it's not religious building, but in church, the center is the community hall. Then, of course, remember the very important lessons in the history of a modern heritage city is the Tony Garnier industrial city idea that the modern city should base on democracy. Of course, you have an old town, but you don't need to destroy the old town. You can expand the town to different parts, which is closer to the circulations and the necessity for power generation and so on, based on the grid system, because grid system is very rational. And at the middle of the so-called the new town, you can have these facilities for decision-making process, for democracy to be functions, and university, schools, to give education, sport center, to make the people healthy so they become more productive. And you separate industrial from dwelling, because the industry have their own, created their own pollutions, noise. So in order to be able not to mingle, not to influence the bad influence of the industry influencing the dwelling area, you must separate that and then handle the situation differently. So this idea of zoning, the idea of equal development, rational development based on the industry is very much the foundations of what we have today. Then Ebenezer Howard Garden City concepts is also based on that you should create the third magnet. The first magnet is the town, the existing town, 19th century town, which is being polluted, but at the same time also that city provide resources, provide works, provide jobs. But on the other side, we have countryside that have the resources, but they don't have jobs. So a lot of people moving from the country to the city, urban immigrations. And that creates imbalance because the countryside is become poor in terms of economy. There is no job opportunity and they are being exploited by the city. So the city grows bigger and bigger and the nature is getting smaller and smaller. And this is what happened in my first slide at the beginning to show that Asia is urbanized very fastly from the rural into urban. So the urban population will increase to 60 or even 70%. That means that there is imbalance with the rural developments. So Ebenezer Howard proposed to create the third magnet, which is called the town country or the so-called garden city. And the idea of garden city is actually to keep the new balance, that you have a constellation of dormitory town, central business district, recreation town, interconnected with a very efficient transportation system at the middle of the greens, at the middle of the nature. So you don't need to abandon your countryside, but you develop a new urban center, but that urban center is moderated, is controlled to keep the balance between nature and culture. And this idea, of course, is developed further by Le Corbusier. For example, this is an example of Chandigarh plan in India. And his idea based on the green city with abundance of open spaces. Every dwelling has adequate share of three elements: sun, space, and green vegetations. And the city is for living, working, caring for body and spirit, and circulations. It's very ideal city. And talking about this garden city, Semarang has a good one. Thomas Karsten actually is very much influenced by Ebenezer Howard, but also maybe some ideas from Corbusier at the beginning of the century. So he created Candi Baru, for example, to escape from the pollutions and the degradation of the downtown area. But at the same time, also, he created the system of cross-subsidy, the housing at the bottom, at the slope, on the flat land down there, is subdivided into different clusters or different economic categories. So the money collected by the municipality from the development of the elites area in the Candi Baru is being used to subsidize the public housing or social housing in Melaten, in the Grand area, in Erlangga, there, near the stadiums of Semarang. So if you look into the Karsten plan of Semarang by 1930, you can see how this idea of an ideal garden city is being implemented. And even the typology of the communal housing, communal living, in a high-rise building with a playground on the top, is based on the idea of communal living for all the inhabitants to shop, play, live, and come together in the vertical garden city. So it has been built in 1952, but actually we start to make this just recently. It's not very long time ago. And also in terms of dwelling scale, you go deeper into the house. He proposed the interlocking system of residential volumes, open volume with double height space. So the small space look very big. And then the window is double level. So you can have a maximum view towards the city, towards the nature. And the space itself is very flexible. So it's not subdivided into smaller rooms. And balcony protected by brise-soleil or sun shading that allows cross ventilations. So the building is cooled through the so-called the passive system, very low energy usage, and provide a private terrace and garden. And I think interestingly also provided the so-called the idea of contactless delivery. So this is the space inside that unit. So even inside the unit, you can feel the same spaciousness, strong connections with nature. And comparable with if you are standing, for example, in the complex of the housing itself, and if you stay also in that city. So I think this idea, like contactless delivery, like this one, it's a street on the apartment, is very relevant even until today. You look into this green box. So the milkman every morning, the newspaper man every morning just put that on that box. The owner of the house doesn't need to open the door. They just turn there's a turntable inside that green box and pick up the milk, pick up the newspaper, pick up whatever delivery through that small window. And below is a delivery for ice, because last time people doesn't have refrigerator. So ice is being produced in the factory. So the ice is delivered at the bottom window below the green box and goes straight directly into the refrigerator under the sink, under the kitchen sink. And this is very much useful for the post-COVID situations. So even for the contemporary issue in regards of, for example, COVID or pandemic, all of these things that has been invented by architects, by urban planners in the past, not just Corbusier, not just from the modern period, but also from the colonial period, but also from the vernacular architecture, can be learned and applied in the contemporary situations on the urban level, on the neighborhood level, on the building level, or even on the unit level. So we don't need actually to invent something that is out of the world. We don't need high technology. We don't need AI. What we need is to go back into our so-called local wisdom, cultural wisdom. Yes, but what happened that into the urban level. Now let's just focus on the urban level because you are from the urban and regional planning. I give you one example that happening everywhere. This is Malacca. We destroy our heritage of the historic core. This is registered as UNESCO World Heritage Cities several years ago, together with the city of Georgetown or Penang. But what happened is there's a lot of demolitions and illegal constructions, gentrifications within the area that's supposed to be protected. There is a monorail project to connect the bus terminal into the tourist area. And during the construction, there's been demolishing so many villages, historical churches. There is a concrete boardwalk being constructed along the river that changed completely the characteristic of the river. New hotel, even new mall on the Padang, and endless reclamations for the speculative developments. Even the river itself, the lifeline of the city, is being dammed in order to maintain the level of the water so the tourist boat can go up and down. So this is what happened to many UNESCO World Heritage cities. Because this happened because of the tourism-centric agenda and over-tourism drive by the government. Second, there's a lot of story, a lot of narrative that's being invented, not based on fact. They don't even care to look into the history, the real history of the place, the real history of the building. But instead invented a new story for selfie, paintings on the wall, everywhere, you know, creating narratives that is not related to the history of the place. I call it excessive consumerism at Disneylanizations, to make the place Disneyland, amusement park for the tourists. Because of politician and partisan policies. Because the historic core actually is never support the government. It's always fought for the opposition. So the government decided not to protect that seriously. Just dump all bus, truck, tourists, whatever, into the old town. And then give the infrastructure and development to the area that fought for them. And the planning is never consulted the community at all. Everything is top down. Land rent control is abolished. So the land price going up like crazy. So the local cannot afford to pay for the tax, to pay for the infrastructure. So it ends up that they sell the property to people from outside that turn that property into hotels, into cafes, into something that is not belong to them anymore. So it's the populations move out and then replaced by something, somebody, or another parties that makes the city not authentic anymore. And then, of course, the weak heritage management planning, weak development planning, implementation and monitoring, no HUL, no HIA, historic urban landscape or historic impact assessment, mismatched delineations of World Heritage Area of the factual one because the World Heritage Area was submitted by local government, insensitive development, inappropriate function as shown on the pictures. And the impact of this is loss of OUV, outstanding universal value, that is stated at the beginning of this slide. So in short, what happened in Malacca is the city was destroyed by themselves, by the state government, who was supposed to maintain this. They have an instrument, but because of corruptions, because of mismanagement, because of wrong mindset, that the city is to make money, the city is to generate maximum income from mass tourism, then at the end of the day, the so-called urban heritage, the urban landscape is destroyed. See, there's some illustrations of what happened. The empty space from map 1791 used to be a marketplace, used to be a custom house during the Dutch period and keep empty until several years ago and become parking lot. And suddenly you can have a Hard Rock Cafe standing there after the listing in UNESCO. The Padang, when the Declaration of Independence was announced 1 year before the Kuala Lumpur by the Tengku Abdul Rahman, now it's become a shopping mall. The river that used to be like this, with steps leading into individual houses, just like in Venezia, just like in Hangzhou in China, just like the city like Bangkok, like in Palembang in the past, suddenly turned into cafe. Why? Because the government just cut and demolish, destroy all these steps leading into the private houses, and build roadwalk, the concrete, along the river. So it's completely changed the characteristic, completely changed the narrative of the city. Semarang also happened in 1993. There's a normalization project. So this slide, I took this project in 1993 when the city government is decided to build a parallel road along the river of Semarang. And the reason of that time given to everyone is say that they want to dig the river to make the Semarang River alive again, like in the past. So the boat can sail from the sea into the Pecinan, into the Dutch town, into even deeper. Yeah? Probably is connected also to Banjir Canal. But that is only the promise. So what happened is the demolition of so many buildings, especially in the Chinese area, in the Pecinan area. So this damage is irreversible. You cannot reverse this anymore. And the road is supposed to be jalan inspections, not just to do the inspections. Now it's become like a normal road. Right? So this is something that mistakes that not just happening in the past, but also happening now. For example, like the locations of the Museum Kota Lama in this month. See, it's located on the tip of the very important archaeological site. But there is no study, no analysis, no layering whatsoever. Yes, maybe there are, but it's ignored. And the building is just built there. And the impact is destroying the historical layers. And then you have all this story. What happened like in Malacca is repeated again in the old town, yeah, and the Dutch town of Semarang. You have this famous, Instagram. You can make a phone call in London because you have a London phone booth there. You have a Victorian, it's so-called in urban development terms or tourism development. It's called the beautifications. So beautifications is destroying the authenticity of the city. I don't know whether this project in Kampung Melayu has been executed. But again, this one, if you look into the original history, the morphology of the city, it's never been like that. So this is a new intervention, top-down intervention, without asking the residents in Kampung Melayu, for example, whether they want to have this. Whether the people in Kampung Melayu willing to become Mickey Mouse. Why? Because tourists will come, enjoying this, taking selfie, and the inhabitants of Kampung Melayu will become the attractions, will become the show for them to see. So Disneyland is coming to different parts of Semarang. And if you look into what will happen next, probably Pecinan will also have the same things. This is from the DED. You know, DED is the weakest point in terms of our urban planning, because this is directly related to the project. And this project costs around 30 million rupiah or 30 billion rupiah. For what? For beautifications. And the concept is coming from nowhere. The so-called Pecinan Semarang is not all about China. It's not all about Chinese. It's not about yin-yang. It's not all these concepts. This is a foreign concept for Indonesia. If you learn very carefully about the morphology, the urban history, and also even the culture about Chinese in Semarang, or not just Chinese in Semarang, but Kota Semarang itself, you'll understand that everything is growing in the very differently from China. We are not China. We are Indonesia. And Semarang is Semarang, and uniquely Semarang. You see, for these things to happen in your city, it's not something that is really scientifically wrong. So I always say, forget about UNESCO and Semarang, because what you do is completely the reversal. The planning that is being implemented is not based on a real study, on real history. And this is the responsibility of urban planners, responsibility of architects, responsibility of urban planning, or even consultants who produce this. And the ultimate responsibility will fall into the government, who should manage this, whether you want to give this to the next generations. something that is not authentic, or something that is just simply the improvement of the infrastructure, the resolutions of the flood problems, the solutions of the so-called the pollutions, the solutions of the small economy, of the community economies that can sustain itself, instead of putting 30 billion rupiah into this kind of project. So what we need, I think, as an urban planner, is not rushing. Don't try to finish everything within 5 years. The KPI is not finishing the project in 5 years, because you are not managing it anymore, right? So what is missing from Indonesia is GBHN, Garis Besar Haluan Negara, which is decided by MPR and then translated into Garis Besar Haluan Daerah. Yeah, so you every time during Suharto era, we have long-term plan for 100 years, for 50 years, for 25 years, for 5 years. So we not worry that the plan for 100 years will change every 5 years. You don't need to worry to fulfill your KPI within 5 years of your positions as a mayor, a position as a governor, as a position as a president. Why? Because there is a bigger plan that will go in the longer term. So regardless who is your predecessor, will have to continue to implement that big idea. And that big idea supposed to be built and developed together in democratic way, not just top down, but also bottom up through the studies. So this is the role of the university, the roles of the professions to do this. So in technical terms, it's called, you should have the so-called HUL, the historic urban landscape, to complement the master plan. And this historic urban landscape shall look into the history of the city during this natural growth through the cultural mapping, layerings of the old maps. So we can understand completely how a certain area grows, a certain street grows, what is the typology, what is the morphology of that place. So it's like making a complete set of MRI, X-ray, and all the so-called the evaluation before we prescribe anything on top of that, which is called master plan, detailed plan, including DED. DED is part of the dotted line on top. So you should not implement that without a proper knowledge about what is that. And then you have to develop another instrument, which is HI, Heritage Impact Assessment, together with Environmental Impact Assessment as tool to manage this. A tool to evaluate whether a new plan, whether any new element implemented in any site is violating the so-called the history of the place, violating the morphology of the place. Based on HUL, you must make this as part of the planning law, development law. And HIA has to be done by neutral party, not done by the one who implemented that one. It cannot be done by government. It cannot be done by consultant who paid by the government. But maybe universities, the neutral party, or NGOs should work together to develop an impact assessment. So the result is really, really very neutral and trustworthy. Just take a look into this example. For example, like the city of Kyoto is one of the good examples of how to create this kind of mechanism. They have a vision in 2007. Kyoto City Landscape Policies, forming timeless and radiant Kyoto landscape. And the last page, the bottom one, the reason is so that Kyoto will always remain Kyoto. So Semarang will remain as Semarang. Jakarta will remain as Jakarta. So what is that? Then you must understand the history. You must understand to do the good study in mapping. Then it's translated into the policy on the top line. Policy about building height, policy about the design of buildings, about outdoor advertisement, about historical street, surrounding scenery, and vista. This is to Kyoto, for example, and then develop the support system, where the money came from, how this will be implemented. And it's formed the so-called the landscape policy, urban landscape policy. We should have this as a long-term plan. And how long for Kyoto? From 2007 is not 2012, not just 5 years, not just 10 years, but forever. So Kyoto will always remain Kyoto, forever. It means 1 generation, 2 generations, or even 10 generations. This is one good example. This is the example from that page of that book. Height regulation map before, now it's height regulation map after 2007. So after 2007, you see there's less pink color. It means the height of the building will be reduced, will be cut. How to cut? Look into the details. So the right side is the correct DED for Kyoto. Former regulation is 31 meters, present regulation is 15 meters. Right? So after 2007, no more building built taller than that. Of course, the problem still remains. What happened to building that's already there before 2007? Then you have to find resolutions. If you want people to cut that one, then how is the incentive that can be given to the owner? So you don't make the owner angry. Then come with the so-called landscape regulation map with more detailed, more clear designations of different areas. For example, make the plan 3-dimensional. For example, you want to expose the Chinese word, the kanji on the mountain, because every year there is a ceremony during summer to burn the fire into that form, and it's become like annual ritual. So that big sign on the mountain should be seen from the city. So anything that is blocking that view should be cut. So when you cut that, because of that, then you must have a zoning, 3-dimensional zoning of vista, of view in 3D, not just 2D. You need to have a sections on the master plan, not just 2-dimensional plan. Then you can identify which building should be cut. And 1 building or 7 or 10 buildings need to be cut. Then come to the owner, say, sorry, you have to cut your building, but we don't want you to lose money. So we have money to give you incentive by transfer of development right, for example. Okay, you have to cut this, but I give you more GFA, more floor levels on different part of the city, outside the city, which is not historic core, for example. So there is also aesthetical rules. So DED also, right? Semarang also have, but based on what? Based on the traditional palette, based on the traditional typology, based on the traditional material that has been there. So it's not just taken from somewhere, idea from US, idea from England, idea from China, and then suddenly it's implemented here because it's look nice and good for selfie. It's a very shallow kind of reasons. You have to derive that from a very deep study about your own local identity, materiality. Then advertisement, you have to be controlled. And on your left, an example, this is okay, this is not okay. On your right, this is another examples of how the money came from. The money came from the national government, from Kyoto City, from citizen enterprise benefactors of donations, combined together into Kyomachiya Housing Development Fund. So this is kind of authority. And the authority will evaluate all the needs and submissions and also approach the owner of several houses, then offer a renovation aid to achieve that one. So this effort is not just top-down effort based on city budget or national budget, but this is also because the local also supporting this. The local private sector also supporting this. So it's become like this effort of everyone. The urban planning, urban design is not just a government initiative, but everybody who loves that city, all stakeholders. And this is the key of the community, so-called sustainability. This is the ethical positions. I come back to the end of these presentations. So our mindset actually is not really trying to find something that is beyond our capability, beyond the sustainability of space. Actually, the space that needed by one person is just this size, the size of a sajadah, the size of liang lahat, and also the size of tatami in Japan, or one size of human being. In Bali, it's called asta kosala kosali, proportion that is determined by human body. 180 centimeters times 90 centimeters. That is enough for everything. To give birth, to bury you, to sit and eat, to study, to receive guests, to do a prayer. All activities, the economy is just that. So if we take beyond that, means it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of space. So our mindset should be, take what you need, but not what you want. This is what I always tell to my students. This is how you moderate yourself. Before you buy something, before you change your iPhone from 12 to 13, from 13 to 14, think whether you need it or you want it. If because you want it, then means that you are not sustainable. But if you need it, even the price is very expensive, but you really need it and you justify that need, then it's okay. It's sustainable. It's become like capital. For example, iPhone 10 is good enough. But now my job, my professions, my study needs to create a three-dimensional. So I need to upgrade to 13 or 12 because it's a slider. And with LiDAR, I can do scanning. And with that scanning, I can put everything into Matterport. So I can create the space by using that. And it's more cheaper than if, for example, I buy the Faro scanner. Because use an iPhone, I can do many things to enhance my professions, to enhance my ability. And that is fine. And another reason I found these photos, if it can be reduced, it can be reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled, or composted. If you cannot do that, then it should be restricted, designed, or removed from productions. This is the principle of the so-called the circularity. So we have to change our mindset from the linear economy, which is creating waste after use, into something that is circular. Everything can be recycled. If you're talking about this in terms of urban planning and urban design or professions, then our design, our planning should be socially responsible. It's human-centered and ethical. Second, culturally has to be authentic, based on local wisdom and based on the local context, not just taken from other contexts. Environmentally sustainable, have to be carbon neutral, have to be zero energy, has to be zero waste. So the first zero energy building, the first zero waste building, carbon neutral building is all vernacular architecture. Architecture and urban planning and settlement design, which is developed by our ancestors for hundreds of years. And then economically should be affordable and viable. It's not based on loan. So we don't want to give loan to our children to finish. We have to make something that is finished, can be affordable and buildable using our own resources at the moment. And then architecture and technology responsive and appropriate. So this is how to translate this mindset of security into planning and design. To achieve the so-called, the Japanese invented this one, the new society of 5.0. The human-centered society that balances economic advancement with the resolution of social problems by system that highly integrated cyberspace and physical space. Yeah, this is how the Japanese, but in principles, we never forget the lessons from society 141, society 1.0, from society 2.0, society 3.0, and society 4.0. We combine all the knowledge from the press, from the recent past and distant past together and get the best practices the best vocabulary of solution and resolutions and implement it in the contemporary and future scenario. And we are not just addressing 2 SDG, number 11 and 15. But we also use this understanding, culture, understanding of local wisdom, understanding of cultural DNA, to help, number 1, because culture help eradicate the social and economic aspect of poverty. Number 2, culture is also able to contribute in local and indigenous knowledge that promotes sustainable agricultural practice and food security. Culture strengthens communication and information for disease prevention. Art education and linguistic diversity encourage intellectual dialogue and so on. Okay, so I don't need to explain all this, but even we, especially our profession, focus on 11 and focus on 15, but in fact, our responsibility is have to look into all those 17 things. And all 17 needs a deep understanding of culture. So this slide I presented last Wednesday in Semarang in front of 37 wali kota and another 11. And Bu Ita was there, all people was there. I say, now what we need to do in Semarang about all these things, what we should do. Number 1, we should realize that Semarang is not Kota Lama Semarang, but Kota Semarang Lama, which already become national heritage. It's already declared by the Minister of Education and Culture, by Nadiem, as Kota Cagar Budaya Nasional, and consists of 4 elements: Kampung Melayu, Kauman, Pecinan, and Kota Belanda. So if we still use the term Kota Lama Semarang, which is referred to only Kota Belanda, it's wrong. So we have to take mindset that the city of Semarang is much bigger than that. Along the Semarang River, cut by the Kroto Posweg of Jalan Raya Pos, and you have these 4 areas that form as one, like our heart. So that is the heart of Semarang. So I use Bahasa Indonesia here. Number 1 that you need to do here, pastikan transparansi dan akuntabilitas dalam inisiatif pelestarian untuk membangun kepercayaan melibatkan masyarakat dalam proses pengambilan keputusan. This is democratic process. Second, restore authenticity by a very deep urban history research. Lakukan penelitian sejarah untuk restorasi. If something is wrong, then restore it. If it's not right, then don't do it. Dan rencana pengelolaan konservasi yang efektif. Then we need to have a conservation plan, management plan, which is strong through the zoning, with and also all these components based on the long-term visions, not just 5-yearly, not just ad hoc decisions, but based on the long-term planning. Then return the authenticity based on historical truth, based on the scientific study. Then maintain the integrity of the town, integrity of the city, and reject the commodification of heritage. Don't sell our heritage just for the sake of the increase, the maximum increase of pendapatan asli daerah. This is not the aim. Should not be the main aim. Tourism shouldn't be number 1 in the agenda. Perbaiki kesalahan masa lalu, pastikan keadilan sosial dan ekonomi, promosikan upaya jangka panjang. Then, of course, I quote Kyoto. Okay? Preserve Semarang as a Semarang until 100 years, at least. So, to end this, I just want to reiterate some of the learning points here. Number 1, we should acknowledging the reality of the ecological crisis and the impact of human communities. Remember, climate change is happening and become all problem of everyone in the world, including the next generations, is because of human behavior. Promoting integral ecology that recognize the interdependence of human and nature. Adopting lifestyle that are sustainable and respectful of the environment. promoting sustainable production and consumption patterns, investing in renewable energy and reducing reliance of fossil fuels, supporting ecological education and awareness-raising initiatives, advocating for policies prioritizing the common good and promoting social and ecological justice, encouraging dialogue and collaboration between sectors and stakeholders to address the ecological crisis. Then, most importantly, is to restore the fundamental position of culture at the center of urban planning and urban living. And this is what Mahatma Gandhi said. Actually, our crisis is started by ourselves. Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, Diah, you are still mute, Bu.
Sorry. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Johannes Widodo, for your great presentation. I just enjoy it very much until I forget to mute my speaker. Okay, I hope you still join us because after this we still have one presenter, and after Mrs. Novia Ristianti, we will have a discussion. Okay, now I would like to introduce our second speaker, Mrs. Novia Ristianti. As you can see in our screen, this is her CV. Novia Sari Ristianti is a lecturer and urban designer in Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University. She received her research focus are inclusive urban design, sustainable urban design, and spatial behavior, also public space design. This is some research project. Can you see? And then we can see about some publication, selected publication of Mrs. Novia Ristianti. And now I would like to welcome Mrs. Novia Ristianti to give a lecture. Please, Mrs. Novia.
Okay, thank you very much, Diah, for your time and opportunity. Hello, Prof. Johannes. Still remember me, Prof? We meet in 2019 in first ICUDEP conference.
Yes, of course, I remember you.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Prof. Okay, today I'm as a host lecturer of the ILS, International Lecturer Series in Regional Urban and Regional Planning Department, Universitas Diponegoro. And as our theme today, yeah, it is about sustainable landscape design. So I will give some information and some result from my research. Yeah, it is about biophilic design for urban park towards sustainable landscape in Semarang City, Indonesia. Okay, next. Okay, next. Okay, before I will give explanation about biophilic design in urban park Semarang, I will give you some preaching about biophilic design towards sustainable landscape design. Next. You can see 4 components for biophilic design principle. There are human psychology, and then environmental aesthetic, urban design, and also environmental planning. In these 4 principles, something supports each other, and it is have intersect to realize biophilic design in urban space. Biophilic design emphasis in the context of designing environmental area and also landscape to connect with nature. And I think biophilic design also have not only connect with nature, but it will create a context of well-being in the end. Yeah. And you can see from the my material, yeah, it is about environmental preferences and urban aesthetic. When it will combining, yeah, in the principle of human psychology and also about the environmental aesthetic, it is necessary, yeah, to create ecological preferences. It will produce a biophilia context where the user, yeah, can creating human creativity, also about well-being, comfort to nature, and also health. Beside that, biophilic will also create urban aesthetic. In this context of urban aesthetic, by combining environmental aesthetic and with urban design context, it was built as a nature inspiration by embracing the sense of nature, by placing natural feature, and it will be a form and shape, and then about the pattern, about the mechanism, and also about the design material. And this is about the environmental preferences, yeah, and urban aesthetic. It will produce an aesthetic dimension of biophilic design theory. The aesthetic context will create interaction between users and nature, and it will indicate that elements of nature improve the condition of urban life and present biophilic cities as centers resistant to adverse external factors and harmful phenomena. And I think it will just make effect, yeah, to such maybe control the emotions and make a good mood, have a nice productivity and cognitive activity. And I think it will reduce stress and process related to its reduction. And I think it will create a livability context to create more humanist urban space. And I think it is related with previous presentation from Pak Johannes Widodo, how to create livability with biophilic design. And in the left side, yeah, in the left side, I think sustainable contexts are also created by biophilic design. It is one of way to create sustainable context through restorative environment and also sustainable urbanism. In the context restorative environment combine human psychology and environmental planning, it will create a biophilic design to produce a natural interaction, yeah, by constructing an urban space with the human natural relationship, and it will develop a various space, yeah, I think with a nature system approach. And in the context of ecological pattern, it will become the guideline, yeah, for cities that will expand in harmony with nature and the surrounding landscape. And I think it will ensuring a high level of prosperity and biophilic city, sustainable development, and the livability. I think it is the concepts that are connected with each other, yes, such as a social interaction, so connection with nature, and the current effort to create cities greener with a greater share of nature. It will make the user more resistant to the effect of the outside world, yeah. And maybe I think it is one of this is about climate change, yeah, about, I think it is the previous presentation first slide from Pak Johannes Widodo. It will clear how impact of the climate change to our world. And the biophilic design provides, I think, healthy and productive environment for a modern man in the planning of local communities as an active and sociable neighborhood. And finally, it will make urban landscape more sustainable through connection with nature and relate with, I think, tripartite relationship from Pak Johannes Widodo. It is about human, nature, and God. Okay, next slide. Yeah, this is overview about my object, about my research location. It is about urban heat island index and urban park in Semarang City. Overview about urban heat island in Semarang. I have compared the land surface in 2011 until 2021. It is about 10 years. I using the land surface temperature or LST method with Landsat 8 OLI and Landsat 5 TM satellite imagery data. And I found that 6 and combined with 6 location of urban park in Semarang, I think it is in the context of city park, city park, not a neighborhood park, but it is urban park or city park in the scale of Semarang City. There are three taman or urban park in Semarang has increasing the land surface temperature. It is Taman Sri Kunting, Taman Indonesia Kaya, and Taman Tugu Muda. I think it is more than average land surface increasing in Semarang. So I think near of Taman Sri Kunting, Taman Indonesia Kaya, and also Taman Tugu Muda, it is built environment and commercial area also. So it will affect to the land surface in the urban park of Semarang. And overall in Semarang City, it is rise until in 2011 it is 25 degree, and now in 2021 it is 28.9 degree in land surface temperature. It means that increased 3.8 degree in last 10 years. And the existence of park, I think I have combined with the location of urban park in Semarang City. There are tamans around Taman Sri Kunting, Taman Indonesia Kaya, and Taman Tugu Muda also have a significant increasing land temperature surfaces, about 2.1 until 4.3 degree. And I'm have diagnostics. It is like various factor can causing increasing urban heat island or land surface temperature in Semarang or around Semarang urban park. It is because composition of the vegetation or the remaining green space are being less than the existing built up land. Because many urban park is located in the center city, urban center, and also in the built or high density area. So there have taman or urban park, but it's not affected any influence to the land surface temperature near of the urban park. Okay, next. After overview about urban heat island, now I want you to know about the overview in urban park in Semarang City. I try to assess about the effectiveness of the urban park through biophilic context. I have 6 elements of biophilic design in here. It is about green design, natural image design, flora and fauna habitat design, healing space, physical activities, and natural material design. from my assessment, yeah, to Goodman skill in the context of urban park, Taman Indonesia Kaya, Taman Sri Kunting, and also Taman Tugu Muda just only have around 50 until 60% to accommodate biophilic design elements in the context of biophilic design, yeah. And I think it is related with the urban heat island phenomena about the land surface temperature, yeah, in these three urban parks of Semarang City that increase more than 2.1 degree, and I think it is why interesting to research or to know more about the how biophilic design can make lower temperature, yeah, lower surface temperature in to defense urban heat island in Semarang City. Okay, next. Next. Terima kasih. Yeah, I try to implement the biophilic design in these three main urban park in Semarang. Yeah, first it is from Taman Indonesia Kaya. In Taman Indonesia Kaya, I try to make a biophilic design in these 6 elements. Yeah, about the green design, there are green roof, green walls, and permeable pavement. And this located of this element, it have laying on the entire of the top in the Taman Indonesia Kaya, and also close the sidewalk of Taman Indonesia Kaya. And about the natural image design, yeah, there are biomorphic, monumental scale, and natural ornaments, also murals, and it will make a sense of place to connect with nature from the user. And I think it is with a natural ornament, it will prefer object like plants or animals, yeah, will live in there like their habitat, and how to placement as a focal point in this Taman Indonesia Kaya. And I think it is very interesting with flora and fauna habitat. Why? Because in this existing condition, community gardens is not available in there, but from the user, there are preference to 53%. Yeah, and they wants to give community garden in the Taman Indonesia Kaya. And about the ponds, yeah, I think it is good for implement the flora and fauna habitat through biophilic design in Taman Indonesia Kaya. Okay, next. Yeah, in Taman Sri Kunting, I'll try to make some biophilic design implementation in the context physical activities design. I think the walking or jogging track design, it will and made from rubber. I think it is make they have more physical activities in Taman Sri Kunting. Why? Because they have a wide pavement and wide circulation, a pedestrian circulation in there. So it is very potential to make a walking or jogging track in there. And also about the natural sound elements, yeah, and also selecting healing garden. I think it is very useful for social interaction in there because there are many vegetated setting with a natural context. So the user of this Taman Sri Kunting will make connect and relate with natural. So upon the natural image design, it is better to make a mural and in the monumental scale also and place on the side of the wall. Okay, next. And the last taman, it is Taman Tugu Muda. In Taman Tugu Muda, I think a lot of not permeable pavement, but like pavement with low what is it ya, permukaan atau like low to surfacing the rain or the runoff. So it is like very difficult to make it is with a natural material design. But in the context of green design, the grass pavement, I think it is very useful to Taman Tugu Muda to reduce the land surface temperature. And upon the green walls, I think planter and mosses design, it is placed in the without spacing in this green design. And also upon the natural ornaments, I think it will make a human scale and scatter laying in the context of natural ornament in Taman Tugu Muda. Okay, next. And I'll try to compare about the land surface temperature before and after biophilic design and intervention in sustainable context of 3 taman in Semarang City. Next. Yes. In this Taman Indonesia Kaya, before biophilic design intervention, and the average temperature is about 27.35 degree in there. And after give this material design of biophilic design, it is decrease average temperature about 0.5 degree in Taman Indonesia Kaya. I think it is very possible to make land surface temperature more lower than before biophilic design intervention. Next. Okay, it is about the comparison of urban heat island index from Taman Sri Gunting before and after. Before biophilic intervention, the land surface temperature about 29.6 degree, and with biophilic design, the temperature decreased until 0.7 degree in Taman Sri Gunting. And I think it is I cannot say it is efficient or not, but I'll try to make a biophilic design more good design, not also connect with nature, but it will make land surface temperature lower than before. Yeah, but not only just only in the more less than 1 degree, but I think it is more useful than nothing biophilic design intervention. Next. And the last taman, it is Taman Tugu Muda. According to the Sun Hour analysis, the average temperature in Taman Tugu Muda is 30.05 degree, and before biophilic design, it is decrease until 0.5 degree. So I think why it's happened with biophilic design intervention can reduce more than surface land temperature, because I think it is upon the vegetated setting, upon the green design, upon the natural elements, it will helps it helps the land surface temperature in any taman in Semarang City, in the context of Semarang City. I think it is very useful to decrease the average temperature in around Taman Tugu Muda and also another taman. Okay, I think it is my last conclusion, my last presentation about my conclusion. The elements of green design, natural image design, flora and fauna, habitat design, healing space design, physical activities, and also natural material design. More than half of respondents prefer to the biophilic elements effective to lowering air temperature with blending surrounding nature, providing a calming effect, affordable in terms of cost, and also benefit in terms of mental and physical health. I think it is preference to support fact that urban society to socialize or relax with its group. So if we are visiting the park in small groups, the majority of the time, biophilic implementation in urban parks of Semarang can decrease average temperature by about around 0.5 degree. So I think it is because the biophilic elements such as green roof and water feature can lower the temperature around the area. Okay, thank you very much for your attention and see you next presentation in ILS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Novia, for your presentation. And after listening Chris' presentation for our both presenter, now I would give time for our participant to have discussion with our presenter. Maybe you can have a direct discussion. Please raise your hand if you have any question. I think for Prof. Johannes already have some question in the chat book and already answered it. Some from Mrs. Wakida from Alam Samudro and from the Tiara Nur. Okay. Is there any question that? Okay. Please, one from David Suwarno. Can you open your camera or your voice? David? Okay.
Yes. Is my sound can be heard clearly?
Yes, it's clearly. Hey, David, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the presentation, Professor Johannes, and thank you for the presentation, Ms. Novia. Now there's an interesting thing that Professor Johannes highlight in his presentation, that is regarding accepting nature and resisting nature. Now, I learned before that in civil engineering itself, there is this concept of strong column and weak beam. And the concept is not resisting the earthquake, because in terms of earthquake itself, if we see a building in Japanese when there is an earthquake, we see that the building is actually shaking, but in reality, it's fine. However, in regards to the building that is not shaking, is the one that is fall. Now, this is the same concept that is applied by the engineer, that is accepting nature instead of resisting, because in strong column and weak beam, we deliberately reduce the amount of bar inside the beam itself. Now, besides that, I have a question regarding the topic of identity of the city itself. Now, in terms of the modern city, most of the modern city, including the part of Semarang city that is not included in the heritage, it uses the basic principle of modern utopia. However, in terms of the identity itself, usually becomes diluted, or it feels the same, or there's a homogeneity regarding that city. For example, like another city that is also using this implementation of modern utopia is New York City, which is also quite diluted in terms of culture. Now, how can we fix that in terms of the city itself? Because certainly, in terms of modern city, usually the cultural part is composed of a lot of different cultures. Maybe there's a lot of people from different backgrounds. So what cultures should we use, or what culture should we will acculturate? Maybe that's my question. Thank you so much for the time.
Okay, thank you, David. Your question is for Prof. Johannes or for Mrs. Novia?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. My question is for Professor Johannes.
Okay,
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for reminding.
Okay. So I think it's a very difficult question because it's too generic, yeah? Because what is modern? Because for me, Semarang itself is a modern city. Yeah, even the so-called the alun-alun Semarang is not a traditional vernacular building. It's this is a field built by the Dutch for the military parade, and even the building in the old town Gereja Belenduk and everything. It's all are modern buildings. And then you jump into the questions about New York and so on. Well, I think most importantly, you're talking about the identity. So what is the identity, cultural identity of Semarang, for example, if you reflect on that, or even say like Yogyakarta. So it's always layered over time. Take, for example, like Lesehan in Malioboro in Jogja. This is new. I mean, it's not as old as the city itself. Then it developed over time. Before that, it's just a 5-foot way. It's just a covered walkway that become part of the protections against the climate. But then it's developed into Lesehan. Lesehan happened is because of after the night when the shop closed, then new functions coming, and this new functions is because of the development of informal economy in Yogyakarta, and the space is ideal for them to have a livelihood. And then after midnight, they will close that and clean up everything, and in the morning it's become like a normal town again. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationships between the informal sector and the formal sector on that urban space. That is become an identity. Now, Yogyakarta has submitted the proposals for a UNESCO listing in the tentative list. And one of the idea is to make the axis of Yogyakarta as pure as possible. It's become a symbolic axis. So this kaki lima, this Lesehan is considered as something that is annoying, something that is disturbing the sanctity of the symbolic axis. So if the government take action, for example, by removing this Lesehan, so it's cutting the identity, is removing the identity, and you insert something that is fake, there is something that is top down, it doesn't fit into the continuity of culture. Take, for example, Kampung Melayu. If that project of the walkway around the river is being realized and become a very popular area for cafe and taking selfie, then people will forget about what is Kampung Melayu is. Because Kampung Melayu actually is not on the waterfront. Kampung Melayu is about the street inside. And there is only a several spot near the market behind the Masjid Layur, where it's actually the open space. They open that into the river. The rest doesn't have opening to the river, right? So I think the questioning about identity should come from the understanding, the true understanding about the urban development and morphology of the place itself, and understanding how the so-called identity of the settlement is formed. Because Kampung Melayu basically is the most Nusantara kampung in Semarang. You have Bugis, you have Madura, you have Sulawesi, you have all people from all over the place come together, even the Hadramis, even the Chinese live together on that place and develop a different types of architecture over there. Right? So, and the answer of me, a very, very short answer is, we have to be true to our own self. I mean, study, analysis, deep analysis is very important. So you don't just make a very shallow study about a place and then immediately develop a revitalization plan or development plan. Like what happened with so many DAD in many Indonesian cities.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Johannes, for your answer. Okay, I will give next question. Maybe you can raise your hand to have a direct question. Maybe from class IUP. You can ask about the urban design to Mrs. Novia or Prof. Joe. Akbarwira. Okay.
Yeah, if no one, just waiting for another question. I just want to provoke.
Okay, yes.
Especially talking about Novia presentations about theophilic, right?
Yeah.
Philia is the opposite
Yes,
of phobia, right? Phobia means afraid of. Philia is fall in love too, right? So biophilia is fall in love against nature. So the answer of that actually how to make, say, of course, the examples of that park opposite the Greater Belendo, where it's only 0.7 degrees down because it's not enough trees. So I think to make people of Semarang fall in love again to the nature is to plant as many 1 million trees everywhere, so the pollution will be reduced, the temperature will drop more than 3 degrees. A lot of shading. So people like to take bicycle and walk along Jalan Pemuda, along alun-alun, everywhere. Now it's extremely hot and dusty and polluted. So by improving the overall climatic and also environmental ecological situations in the downtown Semarang, and even with the removal of all this rubbish from the Semarang River, so the Semarang River can turn into a blue water anymore again, and smell nice, not smell sampah. Then automatically people like to walk around, so they start to fall in love again to that place and want to hang out more. So now we go to Semarang River, just for me, go to Pak Karmin, and it's very hot and it's surrounded by parking. Right? So if there is no parking, it's all green park around the river. So Pak Karmin maybe can develop, more. It's become more relaxing, and more people are start to opening businesses along the river. The house has become like the situation of the city center is become a place to go, not to place to avoid. So I think biophilia can work well in the urban level, with a very substantial environmental healing of the entire city, combined with, say, like some area have to be closed from traffic and so on, but the closing traffic, you should also provide with ideal parking areas, so people are not complaining, losing business because car cannot park in front of the house and so on. But there's a lot of lessons can be learned from different cities in Europe, for example, how to transform from the car-heavy society into car-light society, how to make the city become walkable, how to make the city become cooler. So it's not something like so difficult. Yeah, just planting 1 million trees is enough. If you work together with catatan sipil, you say that, or merit certificate or pengadilan agama, the penghulu or the government will not give you merit certificate before you plant 10 trees, for example, in the city. So it's like incentive, right? And then they can put a bench, every new couple, put a new bench under the trees with their names. It is just one idea. And then along Jalan Pemuda, along Jalan Mataram, you have maybe 1,000 or 5,000 trees with 500 benches donated by the newlywed couple. And then they have to take care of that because this is the family heritage. The children have to take care of that. If the tree is dead, then they have to replace. And then, of course, city have to facilitate a place and so on, integrate it with the planning. That can work. The people is really fall in love with it. Become bilophiliac again.
Biophilia is
The key is really, it's not top-down program. Top-down program is project. And will not work because nobody take care of it. So you have to come out from the heart of the community. We need to develop a system that you know, for example, like that, to impose the rules that every married couple have to donate several trees may work, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Prof.
but I think I agree with you, Pak Johannes. Yeah, it's not only about the how to lower temperature, but biophilia is the very efficient for the biophilic design. I think it is the one of goals. These are the main goals for biophilic design. And yeah, maybe in along the street of Pemuda, ya Pak.
Yeah, and
So
also
they not just
remove some of the covered place because you don't need so much trottoir, right? And trottoir is used for motorcycles to shortcut.
Yes.
That's why they put poles, right? So and chains. So I have to file many times when I walk along Jalan Pemuda. Just because of that during the night. So you don't need that wide. Everything has to be covered. So maybe 30% still remain as footpath, but you can put garden and plants, so you can create more absorptions for water into the ground. So you create a bio-retention
like
pool
stormwater management,
and then implement it with with the native plants, which is resilient with very low maintenance costs. So most of the flood water will be absorbed into the ground immediately to reduce the salinity of the Semarang water.
yes,
But at the same time also to add into the green space. So it's the Dinas Pertamanan will become the one who will get a lot of projects to convert. And Risma in Surabaya are able to do that.
Yes.
And the temperature of Surabaya is down maybe 3 or 4 degrees.
Yeah.
So it works. It's possible to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
I think it will make a new communal space, yeah, Pak Johannes. Just not only biophilia, but communal space, along the
Yeah. Thank you,
Pak Jo.
Thank you, Prof. Jo, because to increase develop community to know about the landscape, to know about the situation of our urban landscape. It maybe is need more time than top-down project. Usually, it's more quickly comparing with a down to top. Okay. We have one question for from Akbarwira. Akbarwira, can you? Okay, Akbar. Okay, I cannot hear your voice, Akbar.
Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, not clearly. Maybe you can type your question in the chat column. Okay, maybe we can have another question, Mr. Grandy, that you tell me that you want to ask something. Okay, Mr. Grandy, not in here, maybe. Okay, Akbar.
Can you hear my voice clearly now?
Okay, and now, okay, Jess.
All right, good afternoon. Hello everyone, my name is Wira. For me, Wira, I'm from UNDIP. Well, I have a question for Professor Johannes. I would like to ask something about regarding a case that I've studied once. It was this July actually. I attended summer course that is organized by UNDIP about resilient urban kampung, and in the case of the one kampung, it is one of the kampung that is located in the region of the Semarang. It's adjacent with the area that you mentioned earlier at your presentation with the 1993 normalizations. And the question is, when I was asking about the condition, and the condition really and I cannot say it as a livable place, but people there are being comfortable with that condition, and fairly tight. Our space is very limited. Maybe I want to ask questions about what are your opinions or alternatives that it could be proposed to the people there that is living in that condition of space. Well, they have a connection because due to their cultures, but they're living, they are enjoying that condition. Thank you. Just know if you don't get my question.
Okay, if I can hear clearly because your voice is not very stable. Okay, maybe what your question is about the very bad conditions like slum or squatters or very bad environmental conditions. So the issue of urban kampung is not physical issue at the first place. It's a social economic issue. So I think that should be resolved first. And then the reason of social economic reason could be probably is about density, could be is about the economic livelihood. Take for example like Kampung Kalicode in Jogja. It's a project by Mangun Wijaya, right? So it was built on top of a slope that is built of by rubbish. So it's rubbish dump. So it's very unhealthy situations. And the people who work there, who live there, doesn't have a decent work, doesn't have decent educations. So they have to work as a parking person, parking boy, they have to steal something, become criminals. It's not all their fault. But the step is taken by Romo Mangun at that time, when he lived together with them, is to improve educations and to improve the ecological sanitations. So whenever there is a talk given by Romo, and Mangun Wijaya was invited for, he doesn't ask for money, he asks for cement, he asks for building materials. And then use his knowledge because he's an architect and he wrote the book about the building physics. And he understands how to create a cheap, affordable, healthy building. So they start to do a restoration bit by bit through mutual help by the other people from the community. And the result is, because of this, they managed to improve the ecological situations. And then he also teach them how to recycle, how to collect rubbish, to sort it, and then recycle, sell it to the industry, and then make, say, like snacks from bekicot, yeah, from snails and from the rubbish, and then developing the idea of jumbutan. So for say like the collections of rubbish, for the security. The people doesn't pay with money, but with a little bit rice. It's a traditional way. They put the rice in front of the door, and then the people will collect that. The security, the ronda people will collect that. The tukang sampah will collect the rice and so on. And by creating this and based on the education for the children, less than 10 years, Kampung Kalicode become a decent place to live. It's become a place that the people there feel they are human again with pride. It's not like outcast. And that will be sustained by the next generations, even after Romo Mangun was passed away, until now. that system is able to keep Kampung Kalijode as a good kampung. Right? So it's not just remove and then build rumah susun. It's not the solutions. Because the rumah susun will become kampung again if you don't address the social economic issue first. So I think it's a matter of how we approach, because in urban planning, you doesn't have to start from the physical design. Design is the last thing after you resolve the intangible issue.
So, what you're saying is about the approach that's going to take, and is going to based on the physical or tangible stuff, but also focuses on the intangible stuff such as socioeconomic. Am I correct?
Wira, I'm sorry, but we
Yes.
cannot clearly, but from the explanation from the Prof. Johannes Widodo is in the case of Kampung Bustaman, we must take care about the social economic firm before the design. This is the point that you must understand. Okay, not only with some design, but we must take care about the social, economic, cultural. We must understand about it. Okay, Wira.
Right, get it. Am my voice clear right now?
Okay. Okay. I
Right.
think it's enough,
Okay,
Wira. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Johannes, for your answers.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a last question from Faiz Akbar. Faiz, you can join with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Faiz.
Okay.
Can you open your camera, Faiz?
Oh, sorry. I can activate the camera because my laptop doesn't
Okay,
have
it's
camera
okay.
yet.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, about the time that you given to me. I want to ask some question for one question for Prof. Jo. I would like to ask what is Prof. Jo opinions regarding the application of the garden city concepts in Indonesia, especially in Kota Baru, Yogyakarta, and in Tembalang have same conditions that there used to be endemic vegetation such as cashews, durians, which have now turned into kayu jati and other plants. In Yogyakarta, the land use of sorry, my English is not good.
Wira, bisa tanya pakai bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa. Silahkan.
Oke.
Faiz Akbar pertama,
ya,
maaf.
Mohon maaf ya, Prof. Dan mungkin di sini saya izin bertanya bahwasannya bagaimana pendapat tentang Prof. Jo mengenai penerapan konsep Garden City di Indonesia, terutama pada Kota Baru, Yogyakarta, dan juga di Candi Baru maupun di Tembalang, bahwasannya penerapan konsep tersebut itu mengalami pergeseran dari sebelumnya apa yang telah direncanakan, di mana penggunaan lahan yang ada, baik itu ruang hijaunya digantikan dengan tanaman-tanaman hias ataupun tanaman-tanaman bukan endemik, padahal di kawasan tersebut itu memiliki tanaman endemik yang seharusnya dijaga, ataupun perubahan penggunaan lahan seperti berubah menjadi kawasan komersil dan yang lainnya. Nah, apakah menurut Prof. Jo sendiri, apakah hal tersebut itu dapat dicarikan sebuah solusi seperti tetap kembali ke konsep awalnya seperti restorasi, ataupun disesuaikan lagi dengan konsep tersebut, atau dapat disesuaikan dengan kebutuhan yang ada bagi masyarakat sekitar. Mungkin itu saja.
Kalau sudah tahu bahwa Anda sendiri tahu toh bahwa tanaman yang asli di situ lebih baik, lebih tahan. Terus siapa yang lancang sebetulnya mengubah itu? Itu yang harus dikeplak dulu kan. Asalnya kan begitu. Jadi ya siapanya itu yang harus dididik gitu. Jangan siapa yang lancang ngulik-ngulik itu tanpa melakukan studi yang jelas. Jadi ada yang salah. Nah, persoalannya kan belum ada undang-undangnya. Nggak bisa dikatakan kalau pemerintah yang salah bisa dilakukan dituntut lewat class action. Ya, itu pentingnya. Jadi ada pertanyaan juga dari Santi itu yang di tulisan ya, yang di chat.
Ya, Bu Santi Paula.
Jawabnya kan lama katanya kalau lewat komunitas. Itu pentingnya NGO, pentingnya civic society, civic organizations yang bisa menjadi pressure group karena civic organization itu juga dasarnya bisa scientific, bukan hanya karena untuk kepentingan politik. Saya nggak ngomong soal kampanye politik siapapun, tapi benar-benar scientific. Yang kemudian bersama semangat dengan pemerintah bilang, kami akan bikin kapasitas, menaikkan kapasitas orang-orang yang bertanggung jawab dinas pertamanan atau apa, dididik, dikasih eksekutif program. Nah, itu tugasnya universitas. Universitas dengan MBKM, ya, dengan sistem yang sekarang, dengan RPL, ada banyak tuh kan, dengan macam-macam instrumen pengabdian masyarakat, bersama-sama NGO, bersama-sama dengan expert, itu bisa membuat pemerintah itu menjadi lebih kuat. Misalnya birokratnya yang paling penting itu. Menjadikan yang di eselon 3, yang jadi pelaksana di lapangan, yang bertahan lebih lama, 5 tahun, 10 tahun di dalam birokrasi, itu bisa fokus di situ. Nah, capacity building ini menjadi kuncinya. Bukan soal nanti tanaman itu akan berubah, makanya keplak itu bukan hanya soal protes di koran atau apa, percuma kalau tidak dibangun kapasitinya. Nah, kapasitinya dibangun itu tanggung jawab universitas, tanggung jawab orang yang punya ilmu, juga tanggung jawab dari NGO ini yang bisa memperdayakan masyarakat setempat. Sehingga mereka juga bisa mempertahankan itu, jangan stop, jangan lakukan itu, gunakan ini aja. Kalau kita dengarkan masyarakat itu tanamannya apa, sarannya mereka akan miara itu kan, mereka akan menjaga itu. Itu salah satu strategi yang saya pikir kembali kemana gitu. Kalau yang namanya perencanaan itu tidak didasarkan studi yang jelas, pokoknya meroyek aja, sasar ceplok, pokoknya beres, dapat komisi kontraktornya, terus pokoknya KPI-nya sudah tercapai untuk nanam sekian ratus tanaman, ya, itu nggak akan bisa mencapai hasil yang baik dan tidak akan sustainable.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Prof. Jo. I think we must close this discussion, and I have I must make some conclude for this discussion about the sustainable urban landscape that we already learned from the Prof. Johannes Widodo and Mrs. Novia Ristianti, that the local historical knowledge and the community development, also the knowledge about how we can love our city, our history is need to develop, because we need to make a good city as what we want, and as what Prof. Johannes said before, I hope Semarang still have identity as a Semarang, not as other city. Thank you. Maybe as this is the final last our discussion, and I would like ask Miss Intan that we will take a photo together. Please open your camera. Intan, maybe you can.
Yes, I'm here, Bu. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Jo and Bu Novia, such an inspiring discussion we have here today. Before we close this event, I would like to invite all participants to open the camera, because we will have a photo session. Okay, I will wait for 1 minute. Okay, there are 4 pages here in my screen. I will start to screenshot the first page. Please be ready. 1, 2, 3. Page 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Page 2. Okay, thank you very much for all. Because this, thank you, Diah, for moderating this session. Because we have end our ILS today, I would like to thank for all speakers, Prof. Johannes, Novia, and Diah for moderating this session, and also Bulandung as the committee, and also Prof. Iwandari. And this event about to end, and I hope you found the presentation today are informative and helpful, and we hope this event will bring an inspiration and positive impact for all of us. Please forgive us for our shortcomings. We look forward seeing you to the next series in the next international lecture series next month. I hope you all have a good day. Thank you very much, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Prof. Jo.
Johannes.
Terima kasih, Prof. Jo. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima
Ya,
kasih,
ya,
Prof. Jo, Bu
ya.
Novia, Bulandung.
Ya.
Terima kasih,
Terima
Prof.
kasih,
Ya.
Bapak Ibu.